Good evening, Your Excellency. It is a great honor for us to have you here in Alba Iulia and also here at the Medieval Hotel, according us an interview for Alba Carolina TV. Thank you very much. And as we know, this is the second time when you're here in Alba Iulia. This time in this festival, Dilema Veche. And we want to discuss with you a few questions important for Romania, things that we think that are interesting for those who are watching us. First of all, we would like to ask you about what's happening now in Turkey. These tensions and what we see that the president of Turkey it's now friend with the president of Russia. We know that here is a little change of the things, and also about moving the US armament from Turkey in Romania. Will be this a good thing for Romania, or we will represent a target for Russia?
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, Manuel, and also to your viewers. This is my wife and my second visit to Alba Iulia, as you mentioned. The first time was very short. We had a chance to meet with your mayor, and he escorted us around the Citate, and we were very impressed.
You saw the guard, the changing of the ceremony, yeah?
We did.
The museum with
Exactly,
the Roman Museum.
and also the hall where the Declaration of Romanian...
The Union Hall, yeah. Yes.
Took place in 1918. So it was very memorable, and it was our first trip outside of Bucharest. So that contributed to it being a very memorable occasion for me. And so it's very, very good. We're very happy to come back. This time we're spending several nights here in order to participate and enjoy the
festival.
And the weather is so beautiful. We had a chance to go a little bit outside of Alba Iulia and see the countryside. So it really is a tremendous place. So moving from the beautiful to a very difficult
Yes,
topic,
yes.
Turkey. Turkey is a very, very important member of the NATO alliance.
Yes.
It's also been a critical part of the coalition that is trying to fight ISIS in Iraq and in Syria, and it's been literally at the forefront of the refugee and migrant crisis that originated in Syria, and then later in Iraq as a result of the civil war that took place, or that is taking place in Syria. It's also been bilaterally a very, very important partner for the United States. The U.S. was one of the very first countries to condemn the coup that took place in July. It's known to all that our relationship became challenged after the coup because of the Turkish request that Mr. Gulen be deported from the United States. We have sought at very high levels to maintain a open lines of dialogue with the leadership in Turkey, and just this past week our Vice President Biden, visited Ankara and had extensive conversations with both the Turkish Prime Minister as well as the Turkish President. And our view, the view of the United States, is that Turkey will remain essential to the strength of the North Atlantic Alliance within NATO, and it has shown absolutely no indication that its commitment to NATO will change in the near future, which is very welcome to the United States as well as to the alliance. And Turkey will remain to be a very, very important partner in the fight against the Islamic State, both in Iraq and in Syria, as well as an important contributor to a future resolution of the conflict in Syria, and also in terms of managing the enormous refugee waves of refugees that have very significantly come across Turkey. In terms of the movement of weapons that you mentioned, I really cannot discuss that, and I ask you to contact our Department of Defense regarding those issues.
Okay, and now returning in Romania, some declarations of Mr. Călin Popescu-Tăriceanu, the President of the Senate. He should participate to the inauguration of the defensive system Aegis Shore, and he cancelled his participation, saying that the preparation of that event was against the rules of the Senate. What's your opinion concerning this?
I found it regretful that he chose not to join the ceremony on May 12th in Devaselu, marking the completion of the missile ballistic defense site. There was some questions around protocol that the two parties that were managing that issue was one, Senator Tăriceanu, and then also the Ministry of Defense. He certainly would have been welcomed if he had attended the ceremony.
Now, concerning the migrants, you talked about this subject also at this event here at Dilemma Veche. What do you think that will be the future of this crisis in Europe, and not only in Europe?
And that's the important thing. It's not only in Europe. From the perspective of the United States, we see the refugee and migrant crisis as really being a global crisis. There's some 4.5 million Syrians that have left the country since the beginning of the civil war in 2011, 2012. 4.5 out of a country, an initial population of 18 million, so it's a tremendous loss to Syria, not to mention the many people who have been killed directly in the civil war. But it's only that 4.5 million, even though very large and very important. We estimate there's some 20 million refugees currently stateless in the world today, and they include also a large number of people in Africa, and then also in Central America. The United States continues to be hit by large waves of refugees coming from Central America through Mexico into the U.S. And we strongly believe that this global crisis needs a global response. And so President Obama has convened a special summit of leaders of countries who have been very important and critical in trying to contribute to a solution of the refugee crisis, both in Europe and elsewhere, to take place on September 20th, so in less than a month in the United Nations. Romania will participate in that Leaders Summit. It's being co-hosted by Canada, Sweden, Ethiopia, and a couple other countries, and that gives you a sense of the Mexico, the global nature of this crisis. One of the major efforts that the United States is making, together with the European Union and together with Russia, is to try to bring some resolution to the conflict in Syria itself, both diplomatically, very importantly diplomatically, but also militarily. because it's only when that conflict ceases that the Syrians who have left that country can return. In the meantime, the United States, working very closely with the European Union, has devoted lots of resources to humanitarian assistance in countries like Turkey, in countries like Lebanon and Jordan, where very large numbers of Syrians are currently living. Humanitarian assistance that's meant to keep them there in hopes that the conflict in Syria can be ended and that they can return to their home country rather than move forward into Europe.
To Europe. But this crisis of migration is connected to another crisis, the terrorism that hits Europe very hard.
It is.
This year, 2016, it's a black year for Europe.
You're correct. At the conference, you might have heard Ambassador Mayor speak to this this connection and the need for Europe to do a better job in terms of sharing intelligence on migrants who might also potentially be terrorists, and to take other steps in the area of law enforcement to combat terrorism. But you're absolutely correct, and this connection, this nexus between terrorism and migration out of the Middle East is something that is also of great concern to the United States, and it's becoming a focal point of our election campaign.
Very briefly about the political situation in Romania, because this year we have local election and we're going to have another round of election here in autumn.
From the perspective of the United States, right now, we see Romania as being on a very positive trajectory. It is making very strong contributions to international security through its membership in NATO, but also in contributions to fighting against ISIS in Iraq, and also to trying to bring stability to Afghanistan. And bilaterally, again, as common allies within NATO, the United States and Romania share a very strong collaboration in the area of security. And that includes in the military area, but also in law enforcement and elsewhere. Romania is growing very strongly. It's probably the fastest growing economy in the European Union right now.
Yes.
And
is this a good growth?
Well, I think there
were questions about
this.
this.
Yes, and I think that's there's a very important conversation that should be had about the composition of Romania's economic growth. I think many, including Governor Isarescu, who was here last night, would say that there's questions about whether it's sustainable, whether it's too dependent on consumption and inadequately on investment, but nevertheless it's growing very strongly. And then also in the area of governance and the rule of law. Romania has, over the past several years, has sustained an increasingly credible and successful fight against corruption, one that is making Romania the exemplar for other countries in this region. And its embrace of a democratic future, of democratic values, and its commitment to build strong democratic institutions has also been successful over the past several years. So, and looking at other features, there are no extremist parties in Romania. There's no nationalistic parties in Romania. So right now, Romania is on this, again, I think not only from the perspective of the United States, but other international partners of Romania, is on a very positive path. And my hope is that the country will remain on that trajectory, on this path, and that the Romanian voters in November or December choose representatives in their parliament that will.
We hope for a better one.
Well, no, that will keep Romania on this path that's making it increasingly a very, very reliable and important partner for the United States.
At the at the end of this interview, let's talk about Alba Iulia, as we started. It's your second visit here in Alba Iulia. What's your opinion about our cultural heritage here and the potential that Alba Iulia has from this point of view?
I think the potential is tremendous. When I was here in October, I was astonished to learn from your mayor that first looking at the economy in Alba Iulia and the surrounding area, it's very, very strong. That unemployment here is 1% or less.
Because of Sebeș.
Sebeș, in any case, but also I think the infrastructure that the political leadership here has tried to put into place to make it possible for connections for workers to easily commute between.
Yeah, we
locations.
need that highway from Sebeș to Turda very much.
And then I also saw it looks like a new railway is being constructed here.
Yes.
So,
but pretty slowly, you know. There's a word for us here in Ardeal, Transylvania, that we are a bit slower than the others.
I'm not sure about that. That's not been my experience.
The work is on slow motion, also on the railway.
It seems to be going faster here than in other parts of Romania that I've seen. So economically, the region seems very strong, and then culturally, I really congratulate the leaders of many towns here in Transylvania to recognize that culture can be a very important contributor to quality of life. But then also economic growth. It's true here in Alba Iulia, it's true in Sibiu. I was there in, I guess it was early July or late June for the theater festival that is held there every year, very impressive. And I know that other cities, Sighișoara, are trying to follow your example in bringing cultural events to their town to use that as a means of accelerating both economic growth, but also improving the quality of life for the citizens of Alba Iulia. So I can congratulate you.
Thank you very much. This is our heritage here, history and culture. We try to make the best of these things.
Right.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time for this interview. We're glad to have you here in Alba Carolina Fortress in the Medieval Hotel and for this interview for Alba Carolina TV. We hope that we will see you soon again here in Alba Iulia.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you
very
Manuel.
much.